collected is paid directly into the consolidated fund, and the Commissioner of GRA doesn't have any control whatsoever over how the money is used. So in fact, I will be doing a lot of disservice if I tell you that I can sit here and tell you how GRA, that is not our mandate.
Yours is to collect the money.
Is to collect. Maybe another time when we have personnel from the Ministry of Finance or something, then you can ask them.
How much of our taxes have been put towards what and what?
Exactly. But then let me touch on the tax and good governance. I think this is my second or third in this same chair. Every year in the month of April, GRA launches this Good Governance Week for us to educate the tax-paying public. Some people don't even know that they are supposed to file their personal income taxes, by end of this month. And then I mentioned it to you last year, and this year I'm mentioning it to you again. You as a person, even though GBC will be filing your monthly pay as you earn, you as a person are supposed to file what we call a personal income tax return. And so you have up to the end of April, 4 months after the year end, to go and file. A lot of people may not be aware, and that is why in the month of April we normally go out there to educate the public using the television, radio. We do webinars and stuff like that.
But you've jumped straight into the collection of the tax returns. But I want us to spend a bit more time on the Tax and Good Governance Month. What do you hope to achieve?
Our major objective is to achieve higher voluntary compliance rates. Voluntary compliance, underline the word voluntary, because you see, we have the law backing us. And we can bite, we can do a whole lot, we can lock people's shops, But at the end of the day, I always say, if we go out there, chase everybody and close every business because you are owing us, then where are we going to get the taxes from? So the strategy worldwide is to, engender voluntary compliance. And that is why in the tax, good governance, and then with tax month, we do a lot of education so that taxpayers willingly, voluntarily will comply.
Voluntary compliance?
Yes, because if you don't know what to do, for instance, I've just mentioned that you have up to the end of April. Somebody will be aware, but through this, the person gets to know, and then he say, hey, then let me, in course of the discussion, we'll be telling them how
they can do that.
Exactly.
So when the tax burden is on a few people, and this is where some people complain, they feel that if they're paying more and more taxes, as the rates are increased and the percentages go up, they feel more pressured. But if it is widened and a lot more people are paying taxes, perhaps the rates could come down and the percentages would be lowered. What are the attempts to broaden the tax net? We are told that some policies are being implemented, but what do they mean in effect?
Yeah, it is very true that when you broaden the tax net, then the rate or the percentage could reduce, because when you have more people contributing, then we don't need a higher rate. But then you see, in the informal sector is where we have the biggest challenge when it comes to collection of tax, especially income tax. For VAT, for instance, everybody pays the VAT directly because it's an indirect tax. Everybody pays somehow import duty, because most of about 80 to whatever percentage of the goods and services that we use, the goods are imported, and the import duty, the importer is not the Father Christmas. So this shirt you are wearing, maybe it's a UK, or there is a VAT component. If you go to the restaurant to eat, there is a tax component. But the informal sector is where we have the biggest challenge. They earn income and they find it very difficult to pay taxes. Of course, the act of paying tax is difficult for everybody, and so our management strategy and focus over the years has been to rope in a lot more of the informal sector to be able to, and that is why now we have gone online. Hitherto, you will have to employ an accountant to come in because people don't know how to even file and all that. But now you just download the app, maybe we get there on your phone. And you yourself, you sitting here after this program, if I I am able to spend just 5 minutes with you and take you through this, and you'll be able to sit in the comfort of your home to file your return. So those are some of the measures that management has put in place to make sure that we roll in a lot more people, and then eventually when we get to where we think that we are comfortable reducing the rate, then maybe policymakers will do that.
You've mentioned the returns a number of times, so perhaps let's now focus on that. What are tax returns? Last year, I remember we had this conversation. Someone is listening or watching us for the very first time. They have no idea what that is all about, beyond the accounting students who took elective maths. The rest of the students like Valerie and co who ran from mathematics, they may not understand this one. Val, I'm with you on this one, okay? So help us understand tax returns. Why should we file them?
So the primary mode of communication between GRA and then the taxpayer is the tax return. So most of the time, and now we are operating a self-assessment regime. So you sit in your shop and you make sales on daily basis. You understand that? You render service on daily basis. GRA is not there with you. So at the end of the tax period, and we have tax period, for different tax types. For instance, for VAT, you have it is on monthly basis. So transactions that you engage in, for instance, in January, you have up to the last working day in February to submit the VAT monthly return. So it is that document that the taxpayers use to account for the transactions that they have engaged in to the Commissioner General. So it's a very, very important document. GRA will have nothing to do with you if you don't have a return. So it is the document that taxpayers use in accounting for the taxes that they collect. So the return will tell when you submit. It is not always that you have to pay. If you file proper return, you said that sometimes you submit and you are in credit for some time and you won't pay.
So it's not a tax.
The return is necessarily is not about payment. Let's put it that way. It's about taxes due. But then there's not every tax return that will result in paying tax. So there are instances that you will file a return and then the return will result in credit because maybe in the particular month your expenses or your costs is more than revenue that has come in, especially for startup businesses. You just started and you have incurred so much costs. It's for the mining companies and telco. You see that when they start the first few years, they will be in credit for some years before they start paying. So when we talk about tax return, maybe we'll get to the benefit. There are several, but one of the benefits is that it will claim credit when if it is due you. We even have VAT input tax credit and all that. So it is very, very important. Now, if you don't file the return, occasionally GRA officers will come and assess you arbitrarily because you don't have any information. So they tell you owe the government 500,000, 200,000. Perhaps if you had filed the return at the end of the day, even that period, perhaps your expenses or costs is more than revenue that came in. So you'll be in a credit and you are not supposed to pay. So it is very, very important to file your tax return.
Mr. David Lati Kwakupum has joined our conversation also with the Ghana Revenue Authorities, the Chief Revenue Officer at the Training Unit of GRA. Mr. Kwakupum, thank you for joining us. We've just been educated on Tax and Good Governance Month and what the VRA hopes to achieve, that is to get more people to voluntarily comply with the tax laws, which are compulsory, we are told. And Alaji was telling us about filing tax returns and the benefits. He's mentioned one of them. So beyond claiming credit when you're able to file your returns, what other benefits can one get? Because we want to know what is in it for us.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, by filing, you are meeting a statutory obligation. And so then, of course, you are avoiding the possibility of penalties and interest that you have to pay on unfiled or undeclared taxes. So that is one of the things that you have to take note of. Again, when you file your taxes, one of the things that we have observed is that it enables you to actually know the trend and the growth of your own business. When you are not filing taxes, you are not keeping records. And when you are not keeping records, you cannot really assess the development of your business. But when you are keeping when you are filing, the filing will require you to keep records, and those records will make it possible for you to assess the growth or the development of your business. So the personal benefit to the organization that is filing its returns is that it's able to assess its own progress, the development of the business. And that is something that a lot of us overlook when we are dealing with these tax issues and filing of tax returns.
All right. I want to understand something a bit more. When you ask businesses to file returns, what kind of information do they need? What kind of input do they need beforehand? And I'll get into the electronic system in a little bit, but what information should you put in there? What should you have?
So most of the tax returns they are standardized forms. You print them online. Hitherto, when we hadn't gone online, you have to go to the GRA office to pick the return. So for instance, you find information such as name of the taxpayer, tax identification number, location of the business. Now the tax return, for instance, if it is income tax, there are fields for showing expenses. So I incur so much expenses, revenue that came in, and so on and so forth. These are key information that you find on every tax return. Yeah, there are some of them that may not be standard, but most of them are standard returns. When you go on the taxpayers portal, you can just generate the returns and then you file online and submit.
It's easier, like you said, for some categories of workers to have accountants, like GBC would have maybe an accounting department, and they can be assisted to do this. Who's selling at Makola, that woman who has a shop in this remote part of Media, for example, how are we helping those people to understand some of these things that you're talking about? Because Alaji has just told us, Mr. Kwakupum, whilst you are away, that the more people we get to pay taxes, the better our chances perhaps of reducing the numbers so that the burden is shared across the board. But if the woman who sells snails at Insawan Market does not understand the system you are implementing, then payment may be a problem.
Indeed, that is a huge challenge that faces all of us at the same time. Like you did say rightly, if fewer people are paying taxes, then the rate and the costs will be high for them. Now, if you spread it wider, that means everybody else takes part in paying taxes. The cost and the effect becomes a bit lower and milder for all of us. And so the focus of GRA, and as much as we have the big businesses that are, like you say, have the accountants, they have the muscle, the power to be able to get accountants to do the necessary filing for them. For the informal sector, let's use that word, or the small businesses, one of the things that we have put in place is that we help them. We help them when we engage them to analyze their business activity, do their records, and file the necessary taxes. Apart from that, these small businesses or these small have GRA have what we talk say the tax stamp. So they may not be in the position to go around gathering their records and all those things, but there is a category of tax that is shared across board, and those ones, when they pay, they are given the tax stamp to indicate that indeed they have paid the tax, and it comes into the system. Even that one also, there is a digital process to it that we can collect the tax and it goes straight into the kitty without passing through a third party's hands. So these are the arrangements that have been put in place. Apart from approaching us, there is also the tax stamp arrangement that we use to collect the tax from the small businesses.
Right. Let's look at.
Let me just add a little to what my big brother has said. You see, so this whole thing about digitalization helps those category of people a lot, because now you don't need to, for instance, hire an accountant. And then look at the size of the business, and then you hire, even if it is partly qualified accountant, that person may not take less than 2,000 or But this one, it is just about having a smartphone. And we have national service people and NAPCO people from time to time. They go to the field Okainshi, Kantamato and Co places, and then they take them through. And then for now, part of the innovation, what we are doing now, we have opened tax clinics in all the regional capital, the 16 regional capitals. So we mount canopies as strategic places where people can go and interact with GRA staff, and then they help them with their tax issues. And the focus is mainly on people from the informal sector. The GBC doesn't need that tax clinic. MTN doesn't need that. But then those petty traders, they need help. So we have mounted tax clinic in all the 16 regional capitals.
Take us through the electronic system, and how easy or difficult is it to just log on and file your tax returns and do other business with the GRA?
Oh, very simple. Portal. So all you need to do is to visit www.taxpayersportal.com, or you download the app on your phone, Google Play Store or Apple Play Store, and then you go and register. All that you need to register is your Ghana card or tax identification number. But then if you have linked them, then either of them is okay. So once you use your Ghana card or 10 tax identification number, and then you register on the system, then you go and click on, you will see file your returns. When you click on it, then the various returns that are due to be filed, all of them will pop up, whether it is pay as you earn, withholding tax, personal income tax, VAT. So the relevant one that then you click on file now. So when you file now, that return will open. Then you go in and then you fill in the details like you mentioned to me. There's a place that they will require for maybe your tax identification number, your revenue, your expenses, and all that. Then you complete it. After you complete, you click on submit, and then you are good to go. Not more than 5 minutes. If you really know, no more than 5, maximum 10 minutes, you are done filing your returns online. Very simple.
Indeed, that is the case. If you know what you are dealing with, and then when that is also done, the system can take you to where you can pay if you have to pay. So that is also a provision that we need to mention. Where if you have a payment to make, it will take you to Ghana.gov, and then you make your payment.
So let's get this one clear. On the portal, after you have submitted the returns, and it will generate a tax bill for you. If you are in a payment position, if you are in credit position, that's bad. And if you have to pay, it will generate a tax bill for you. But then you cannot make payment on that portal. Then you go to Ghana to go and
I presume that there's a certain PIN number, or there's a reference number that you would have to enter in Ghana.gov to link to your own filing, so that they know that
when you are registering for the first time, the system will send you an OTP, one time pass this thing that you use. That one is for every online system. That's how it operates. So if you are registering for the first time, they will
send you a code.
Exactly.
So when you have done that, then you will now have your password for subsequent handling of the platform. Yes. So you have your own password.
All right. Yeah. So let's talk about what you're doing for collection of property rates, because that is also one of the areas where you also intend to generate a lot of revenue. The online platform allows you to make payments towards your property.
Sure.
There is a different platform. That one is myassemblies.gov.gh.
But it's still Ghana Revenue Authority.
Yes, this one is a collaborative effort between Ghana Revenue Authority and then the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, which has oversight responsibilities over the assemblies. In fact, by law, it is the responsibility of the assemblies to collect property rates.
Sure.
But that has been one of the biggest challenge of the assemblies over the years. And so they approached us, so that we can come together. As for GRA, collecting taxes is our stock in trade. That is what we do on daily basis, and that's what we have done. I have done this for over 20. David is even older than me in GRA, so I've done like 25 years in this. And so the expertise and the professionalism that we have in GRA, we are bringing it on board facilitate the work of the assembly, but actually it is the work of the assembly. And then for now, we have set up a data system for collection of property rates, and then in collaboration with the ministry and also the land valuation board, we have identified every property. So if you go, once you register onto the system and you want to find where GBC is, you can easily do that. If you are, it doesn't matter where your property is located in this country, you go in there and then you see your property, the values attached to it, you see. If it's a 4-bedroom apartment, if it's a 2-bedroom, you will see the value that has been quoted by land valuation board, you see it. Then the rate that you are supposed to pay, everything is captured in there.
The valuation people tell us that that has not been concluded exhaustively. So for some persons, even though you might have a desire to pay, because evaluation has not been done, coming to an agreement of what to actually pay is a problem. Some people are willing, but how much do they pay?
Yeah, so it's as a result of all this that we are going through this collaboration. You know, the Act 971 mandates GRA to advise various assemblies on how to assess and also collect the taxes. So with this arrangement and the difficulty in actually getting the values, that is what has led to this collaboration with the Land Valuation Board, then the Rural Development Ministry and all that. And then what it is that, of course, since it's a more or less like a teething stage in trying to go digital, there will be these little challenges that will come up. The expectation is that if you have any challenge, if you have any problem at all, you have to contact the either the GRA office or you contact the assembly office, and it will be resolved. We don't expect everything is being done right. But the most important point is to start somewhere. And as you go along, when the challenges come up, we resolve them and we move on. Gradually, we will get there as it is. And like it's done in the advanced countries, the developed countries that we know, we will also be able to appropriately and equitably collect all taxes that are related to properties that are in the state.
Okay, so Tema, the last time we came here, we mentioned that about 76 municipal, metropolitan, and district assemblies have their properties evaluated by the Land Valuation Board. But as we speak now, I think our 170, we have 216 so about 170 assemblies have had their properties, and so we are ready to go. If what do you call it, your area, your assembly, your properties have not been ready, you approach. We don't advise you to go online and go and register the property anyway, and then pending, you can make payment on account, pending the valuation and then determination of the appropriate rate. If after valuation you realize that you have paid more than what you ought to have paid, your account will be credited. They will not refine the money to your account to be credited.
So it's a lot like what ECG is saying, that if your meter has not been read and the bill has not been provided to you, perhaps pay what you paid at the last bill.
Exactly.
So that you know that you've made some payments. That way, when the bill comes and you have to pay more, or if the system owes you, then it's deducted from the next one. It sounds like that's where you're going with
that. It's very advisable that we do that. You see, because as we go along, if it is a constant facility that you are enjoying, and there's a tax related to it, whether you like it or not, at a point in time, the issue will come up, and you need to pay the taxes. So the best thing to do, the such a situation, is to be paying something along. So you put it on account. It's for you. Anytime you have the full evaluation and assessment, then we will take into account what you have already paid. And that is what you offset or set off against what you'll be expected to pay per assessment. And then you are good to go. But if you don't pay anything at all, that is where the challenge comes in. Because at the end of the day, when the assessment comes and it is huge, you begin to run away. You begin to have issues with the authorities. They are not wrong. It is because you have not made payments over a long period of time. You are used to not making payments, one. Two, all those payments have what? Accumulated, have accrued. And when now they're supposed to pay, it becomes a challenge, where especially we are in difficult situations where we don't have money regularly or liquidity is difficult, then you begin to complain that you are not being treated fairly. It is not that you are not being treated fairly. You have not treated yourself fairly by putting yourself in a position where you have a big challenge. So let's take note of that.
Fair point. With digitalization comes the question of access. Not everyone has access to these digital platforms that the GRA and other companies are bringing on board. So do the manual processes still exist? If somebody still wants to do all these things, you know, pay their taxes, file their annual tax returns, pay their property rates,
No,
but they can do them annually.
Let us
they can do them manually.
Property rate, but even that we are no more accepting manual payment of property rate. The assemblies are not, going to accept in this new arrangement that will come out with. You have to. And for you mentioned those who have difficulty. Of course, it's not everybody who
has a smartphone.
So the assemblies are deploying officers to visit various homes. Yeah. So if you have you have a phone and you don't know how to register, for instance, they will take you through. It's a very simple process. They will take you through.
And if your phone is now the YAM said we shouldn't mention. Maybe your phone is a potato. It doesn't have this connectivity.
And then there will be a little. You go to the nearest assembly, at the assembly where your property is located, and then they will go into the system and they will register you electronically. As for manual, it's a no. It is not going to happen. So, like you are saying, if you don't have a device, you go to the assembly. They will register you. They will be able to identify your property, and then they will tell you the the rates that you are supposed to pay, and they will help you generate the bill and then go to Ghana.gov to go and pay. But let me make this very important clarification before we proceed. When we talk about property here, we are talking about immovable property. It is not every property, because the car that you ride is a property, but that's not what we are talking about. This furniture that we are sitting on here, they are also property. We are not asking you to come and pay taxes or rates on those properties. We are not even talking about containers, that you mount somewhere and then in a year or two somebody can move it. No. So we are talking about permanent structures in a complete, if you are putting up a building and you haven't completed, and somebody comes there taking property rate, tell the person is a no. So a permanent property that has been completed and being occupied by people, that is what we're talking about, that annually you're supposed to pay a token. We expect so much from the state. I'm not talking about government, I said the state. What are we also doing to help the state provide some of the, if the streets in your area are bad, no street light, no places of convenience, and so on and so forth. These are some of the little things that we can, because we see in the absence of our taxes, government will have no option than to borrow. And the places that they go to and borrow, it is somebody's tax that they go and borrow. It's very funny. This property rate, if we can focus on it, we could be able to collect a lot, and after some 5-6 years time, I don't think there will be the need for us to go and beg anybody for money again, trust me.
Let's talk about the other activities lined up for this month of April before we rise. It's Tax and Good Governance Month, and beyond some of these engagements that you're having with the media, what's the plan?
Yeah, so thank you very much. So generally, we have opened up our offices for taxpayers to come in, and if they have any challenges, any issues at all, they will be helped to address them. We are mounting tax clinics at our various tax offices, and the notices have been sent out. We have webinars where we discuss pertinent issues relating to your tax and payments, and all these things have been clearly spelled out to allow for us to be able to contribute our quota individually and collectively to the development of this nation. So our doors are open, and we'll visit you even in your offices, in your business places, to help you to go through your tax responsibilities. And when that is done, we expect that you would also be supportive of what we are doing, because we are all doing this together. I mean, I always say that we are in it together. So if we are in it together, like my colleague said earlier on, these taxes, when we are able to collect them, we will use them for our own selves. in this our own state. Okay. One of the things that we are looking out for is the efficiency, because once we are able to collect it efficiently, we will now be, there's a benchmark. We'll now be able to meet the benchmark across the West African sub-region. As it is now, yes, we are collecting, but we are far below the benchmark. That is the average across the West African sub-region. So this is where we are targeting. And we need you, the taxpayer, to collaborate with us to be able to get there. And we have put in the structures. We've put in structures in place to also make our interaction smooth, so that at the end of the day, we will be in a position to be proud of ourselves that, yes, we also contributed to the development of this state, this nation that we have, this area that you live in. All these things are done, developments are done with funds. And if the funds come in through the taxes that we pay. So we have put in measures, and we have announced it. It's on our website and all those. So anybody at all who is interested, one way or another, if you want to give information as to how to go about collecting some tax that is hidden somewhere, our doors are open, and we welcome you, and then we'll take you through the process and we'll collect the tax accordingly.
Mr. Kakupo and Alhaji Anderson, I will give you final opportunities to make a last submission, and then we rise. I'll start with you, Alhaji.
Yes, my advice to fellow Ghanaians, I'm not the president, so, but fellow Ghanaians are the same. Everybody should try and pay. We seem to be paying something. You know, it may not be 100%, but if every, like in the intro you rightly mentioned, if we cultivate the habit of voluntarily contributing something to the national kit, it will get to the time where the rates will be reduced, and then everybody will be happy. Again, on property rate, if you give me 1 minute to say this because it's important. Now the system has started, so you are living in a 4-bedroom apartment at East Legon, for instance. Also living in a 4-bedroom apartment in Kaswa, another person in Adabraka. They have classed them, so we have the class 1, class 2, class 3. The rates will be different for, you know. So those in the airport and East Legon, and they are the class A or class 1. So you don't go and say that, oh, my friend had, you know, the bill came, he's paying 2,000 and I'm paying 5,000. That kind of locational distance is there, you know. And that's what I wanted. But apart from that, everybody should try and file, including you, file the at least the PIT. That one is due for everybody. Like I said, even though your employer will file the PAYE, you are supposed to file the annual return by the end of this month. Right. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So I'm very passionate about our consciousness, our tax consciousness. Let us all be beware, or we should make ourselves aware that without the tax that we collect, have stunted development in this country. We should all be conscious of our obligations towards the tax collection or tax mobilization. One very pertinent area is dealing with especially the indirect taxes. You know that those usually are on trade transactions. And a lot of people make purchases without collecting the tax invoice. They will not collect the invoice relating to them. So how do you know that this transaction that took place, this tax that is on, is being actually accounted for to the tax authorities? So it is important that we take note of these things, so that at the end of the day, together, we will maximize the revenue collection, we will improve efficiency, and all of us will have the development that we are looking forward to.
Mr. David Latekwakopom, Chief Revenue Officer, Training Unit, GRA, and Alhaji Yakubu Anderson, Revenue Officer, Tax Audit and Quality Assurance Department, also of the GRA. Gentlemen, thank you so much for sitting with us this morning. Your Education on Tax and Good Governance Month is now underway. Go and watch this interview all over again on our Facebook and other social media handles, GTV Ghana, so you are educated on the need to pay your taxes. You should keep the taxpayersportal.com in mind. Tax clinics opened across all 16 regions of the country to help you file your annual returns, also help you to pay your property rates via the platform which has been created by the GRA in collaboration with the assemblies. So go out there, fulfill your tax obligations, and let's develop this country to how you and I want it to be. Breakfast is still live on GTV. We'll be back with more